Hello again everyone, this is Risky Lizard, and this video is going to be a guide on getting your gear in order and how to prioritize it and what I recommend, and we'll just jump right into this one. So the most important thing is when you go to build gear, you do so at this gear factory. But we're going to take a step back to where you obtain all gear and what you should do with it, and we're also going to just kind of explain priority in terms of what to build and what to upgrade first, and we'll just go through the whole ringer. So let's start with where you typically get gear. So you can get gear from all sorts of resources, or all sorts of sources rather, but Doom of Elites, it's a common one for getting blue gear, and blue gear helps feed your ability to make higher level gear. But anytime the stamina arms race or the drone data arms race is going on, you can do stamina, and you want to be doing Doom Elites for this reason, because this will help you get more components to make higher level gear. Another reason why I don't really worry about wasting time with these zombies. They're not worth it. They just don't have the same benefits that Doom Elites do, and the green gear that you get here is not as good for generating materials, so keep that in mind. But for Doom Elites, they give you blue gear, or have a chance to give you blue gear, which is really helpful, and I'll show you why in a minute. But you can get other sources of gear by plundering trucks. Occasionally when you go and look through trucks, they have these epic gear chests. You can find 1, 2, 3, or 4, I think is the most that I've found in one place. But you want to look around and try to plunder these along with shards if you're low on parts. But that's a couple of the places you can get gear. You can also get them off of plundering trains, but I'm not going to hunt for a train that has that on there because it's kind of rare. As far as secret tasks, you're not really going to ever get any gear or anything like that from here. This is more other things. But as far as the gear goes, once you get it, what do you do with it? So here, the main thing you want to have is a level 20 gear factory so that you can make and upgrade legendary gear, especially upgrading legendary gear and putting your gear blueprints on it. We'll get onto that later. But for the gear factory, you can go in and click this little orange hammer, and here you have 4 options at the top: craft, dismantle, merge, and disintegrate. You're rarely going to use disintegrate because there's not really any reason to take your higher level materials back down to lower level materials. But I guess if you wanted to do that for some reason, you could, but you're never going to want to use it. The 2 options you're mostly going to use here are probably dismantle. So you can see I have all of this gear that's blue. You never want to put this gear on anything. You want to just break it all down. This is from doing a lot of Doom Elites and forgetting that this existed, and other things that give. These are things like Zombie Siege, for example. They give you a bunch of junk gear. So the main reason you want to break all of this gear down is to get these components. And these are, I guess I shouldn't say components, but materials. These materials are things that you can use to merge and consolidate them into higher level materials to make the dielectric ceramic, which is what you ultimately want to get the most of. You can also generate materials for this by improving your screw factories to make the screws, and that's this build in right here. I only have one that's not in a gift box, so I'll click that one. But as you upgrade these, you can get more screws per hours. A lot of people don't see the value in this, but I'm well aware of the constraint that you face later on when you're limited on dielectric ceramics, so I have leveled these up quite a bit, probably considerably more than most people will. But if you don't feel like doing that, you can kind of take a shortcut from screws by just plundering a lot of weapon chests, the purple weapon chests, because each one of those weapons you break down will give you 150 synthetic resin, and you can just skip these lower 3 stages, but I try to make the most of everything I do, so I upgraded the screw factories a lot. So you just want to merge all of these. Once you merge them, there's a max button here to merge all of them, and you just want to create dielectric ceramics. So as far as the gear that you want to create, you never want to craft purple gear ever. You only want to make UR gear or legendary gear, and that's going to be the same for all of these. and you're going to want to focus on your first squad gear first, and you're going to want to focus on your next strongest squad, which for me is my fourth squad, which is technically my second squad, and then my third squad is missiles, and my fourth squad is kind of just a bunch of different junk heroes that I have left over. Sorry, Loki, but you are junk. Um, but yeah, so as far as building your gear priorities, say you have no gear at all on any of your heroes, I still would recommend that you do not build purple gear. Don't put your blue gear on. Break it all down and merge all of the parts to make dielectric ceramics and craft gold gear. And you want to start off with making gold guns for your 3 damaging back row individuals first. The next thing you want to craft are radars. You want to craft 2 radars, one for each of your front row people. And then you want to make data chips, which are these. You want to make data chips for your back 3 defenders, or sorry, your back 3 heroes. And then you want to go back to your front row and you want to make shields. So that's these, and the shields, you'll make those for your front row. So now you've made guns for the back row, radars for the front, data chips for the back row, shields for the front. Now you kind of want to flip that around. I would then recommend, after you get those 2 things taken care of, I would focus on putting radars on the back row and shields on the back row, and then putting guns on the front row and putting data chips on the front row. Just to finish out the gear, but you want to build in that order. And as far as highest priority, you want your radar to go onto your front left character first, which will be Williams for tank, Carly for aircraft, and McGregor for missiles. These are the ones designed to take a hit, so putting the radar on is advantageous because the radar will give you percentages of energy damage resistance, which is really good because a lot of people do energy damage. So I would focus putting the radar on Williams, Carly, and McGregor first. And when you get to the front row and you go to do your second radar, putting it on Murphy, Lucius, and Adams second. And then for the shield, you want to prioritize that order again. Put your shield on Williams, Carly, and McGregor first, then put a shield on Murphy, Lucius, and Adams second. As far as damaging classes in the back row, you want to prioritize putting your gun and data chip on Kimberly and DVA and Tesla first, and then you want your next one to be, as far as putting your gun on first, you want then Stepman, Reaper, and Fiona, and then your third gun would go on Marshall, Schuyler, and Swift. And then, of course, put data chips on those in that same order. That's kind of like the gear priority because your best defenders are going to be the ones who are designed to take a hit and need the best gear, which is Williams, Carly, and McGregor. And then your best support defenders for the front row, they need defensive gear too. That's why they go second, which is Murphy, Lucius, and Adams. And then just on your back row, you'll typically have 2 good damaging heroes, and you'll have 1 support. I consider Marshall, Schuyler, and Swift support, just by my definition. So I gear them last, but as far as your best 2 damagers, your highest damage is going to be Kimberly for tanks, DVA for aircraft, and Tesla for missiles, and then Stepman, Reaper, and Fiona for next best damage across the board. So after you have put gear on your first squad, and we'll go into my heroes. So these top 5 are my first squad. Once you have legendary gear on all of these, you do want to continue to craft legendary gear for your next squad, but just leave it at 0. And that's what I've done here with my tank squad. And now I've actually started crafting legendary gear for my third squad. And you can kind of see the priority that I have there. Just use my Secretary of Interior buff really quick to claim that so I get my bonus resources. So when it comes to my third squad, you can kind of see that McGregor, he's built to take a hit. I'm putting my radar on him, and then for Tesla, I put a gun on him, and then I'm the next thing I need to make is a radar for Adam, but I've already put a gun on Swift, and I actually believe I have a gun for... Yes, I do have a gun for Fiona that was on Mason, but I've already got a gun for Fiona as well. So I've got guns for my back row, and I'm going to put a radar on Adam. Now typically he would have a radar on him already, and the last thing I would be building is a gun, but my missile squad is not a high priority for me, so I'm just sort of completing their gear in any order, but I am trying to do it in the correct order. So the reason why I don't have something crafting right now is because I'm kind of limited on how many parts I have for what I'm currently trying to accomplish, but that's the general outline of gear that you want. You always want to be crafting a gear. It is expensive to make this gear, so you want to make sure you're crafting the correct parts, but even if you craft the wrong piece of gear, you do have the ability to go into the dismantle option and break the gear back down. Anytime you break gear down, you get everything back that you put into it except the gold. So you won't get this gold back for crafting it, but if you've put upgrade ore into the gear, so for example, if I pick this piece of gear, this has like an amount of ore that I can put into it. Any ore that I put in, I'll get all of it back, so don't be afraid if you've put ore in the wrong place and you need to fix your gear to deconstruct it and build it again, but only if you've made like a serious mistake and gone up like 40 levels on an incorrect piece of gear. But honestly, it's never really worth it to break down gear. Just leave it and catch the other gear up. So let's talk about the next priority after you have your gear crafted for your squad, what gear to upgrade first. And this is a pretty streamlined process as far as priorities go. So with your first squad, so my first squad is aircraft, you have your front row defenders here. For me, I'm going to use aircraft as an example, but all of my squads, if you need to look, are set up the exact same way, with my defenders that can take a hit on the front left, my defenders that are supporters on the front right, and I have my two best damaging classes on the back row with my best one in the middle, and then I've got my next best damage class on the back left on the outside, and then I've got my support classes on the back right on the outside. And again, Swift is technically damage. I just consider him support only because he focuses the person with the lowest life. So to me, that is kind of a support feature. But this will apply to everybody's squad, but since all my gear is on my aircraft squad, you can actually take my gear off exactly as it is on my aircraft squad, and you would put it in the same positions on the tank squad and on the missile squad. So, going into my heroes and just kind of looking at their gear, Carly is my front left defender. She's built to take a hit, so I prioritized getting her radar and shield to 40, and then DVA was my best attacker, so I prioritized getting her gun and data chips to 40, and same with Reaper, gun and data chip to 40, and Lucius is a front right defender, so you can see his radar and shield are to 40. And then for Shyler, I have her gun at 40, and I still need to get her data chip to 40, but I had to hit pause on this because I am currently trying to use gear blueprints on my Reaper's gun. But I'll get into that in a bit. So how do you prioritize using your upgrade ore to upgrade this gear? So that you don't have all of the levels in front of you confusing, I'm going to go to my tanks. So let's pretend like you've put gear on all of your heroes and you haven't started to upgrade them yet for some reason. We'll go ahead and talk about priority. So the first thing I would do is I would get your Kimberly gun up to level 20. And the main thing you want to focus on when you're leveling up gear is well, not Kimberly specifically, sorry, just your best damaging person's gun. So either Kimberly, Tesla, or DVA. But what you want to focus on when you're upgrading your gear is that every 10 levels you get a bonus. For the first 10 levels, this one is 250 hero attack. For the next 10 levels, you get 2.5% critical chance. What I recommend to people is chasing the percentages. So you don't want to just upgrade every 10 levels. You want to try to go a full 20 levels before switching to the next piece of gear. And you never want to, say, get one gun to 5 and get a shield to 5 and a radar to 5, because that doesn't really do anything for your ability to survive or your power. You want to get them up 10 levels at a time at a minimum, but ultimately strive to get them up 20 levels at a time to try to get those percentage improvements, because like for shields, 10% physical damage resistance. For radars, energy damage resistance, 10%. That's going to do a lot more for you than just improving your, base defense by a specific set value. For the data chips, you get resistance to all damage types by, again, another percentage. You want to chase the percentages to improve your gear. So in terms of upgrading them, try to upgrade them 20 levels at a time, 10 at the least. But it doesn't mean that you can't, progressively work on gear. So for example, my Reaper, I'm trying to level up his gear here. But even though I don't have the materials to upgrade his stuff all the way, I'm still going to put the materials into this to level it up, because I still get bonuses for that. And the same is going to apply for lower level gear. So let's say none of this gear has been leveled up yet. And the first thing I want to do is start working on my best damaging classes gun, and I only have enough ore to get it to level 5. I'm going to go ahead and put the ore into it and get it to level 5 by clicking the weapon and clicking upgrade. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because every time you upgrade, you are going to increase the attributes of the gear, and it's going to get a little bit better every time. But what you don't want to do is switch, like get this one to level 5, for example, and then go and get another one to level 5. Don't do that. Finish getting it to level 10, then to 20, and so on and so forth. And again, only do legendary gear. Don't waste time on purple or blue gear. It's a waste of gold to craft it. It's a waste of ore to put it in and have to break it back down. Only do legendary gear. We refer to purple gear and blue gear as fake power. It makes your heroes look stronger, but it does absolutely nothing for them. So focus on that. And then once you get your best damaging class gun to, once you get your best damaging class to 20, you can then move on to getting your next best damaging class to 20, or you can skip to doing the radar for your frontline defender, and then you can go back to your back row and get your next gun to 20, and then also go back to your next frontline defender, get the radar to 20, then go back to your third frontline defender, and finally get their gun to 20. So that's going to be the first round. It's going to be gun, radar, gun. And then you can switch back to the next cycle, which I would recommend focusing on their second pieces of gear. And for that one, you're going to go to your best damaging class, and you're going to get your data chip to 20. And this is going to be in the same order. You'll get your best damaging class to 20 on their second piece of gear, which is the data chip for damaging classes. Then for the front row, it's going to be level 20 shield for Williams or Carly or McGregor, and then you're going to go to your second damage class, and you're going to get their data chip to 20. Then you're going to go to your other front row defender, get their shield to 20, and then you're going to go to your third damage class and get their data chip to 20. So this priority of gun, radar, gun, radar, gun, and data chip, shield, data chip, shield, data chip. This is going to apply pretty much all the way through to the very end of the game in terms of priority. So once you get the ability to make them even higher using gear blueprints and mythic blueprints, which I'll explain in a second, you're going to want to keep that priority of going back and forth typically. That's the general meta that everyone follows, and it's going to do the most for you if you don't care to look into fight strategies too much. But then beyond that, once all of their gear is to 40, the next thing you would prioritize is radars for your back row. So at this point, you've got the shields and radars on your front row at 40, and you've got the guns and data chips on your back row at 20 or 40. Well, first you should focus on getting them all to 20, and then you should do that same order of getting them all to 40. So you would go back to, after everything is 20, you would go back to getting, your best damaging class gun to 40, and then you would do the radar on your front row defender on the left to 40, and then so on and so forth in the same order from your next damage gun to 40, your next front row defender radar to 40, in your last back row damaging class gun to 40, and switch over to data chips and shields and go back and forth. And then once all of those are at 40, and yes, I recommend getting all of those to 40 before really bothering too much with your other gear. After that, I would then focus on getting the remaining gear to 20, which for your back row defenders, I would do all of them first and not going back and forth. So I would get all of the back row radars to 20 to get the energy resistance, and then I would get all of their shields to 20. And then after those are done, I would go to the front row and get the guns and data chips for your defenders on the front row to 40, or 20, and then 40 last. But just to kind of give you an overview of all the gear, it is more important to get all of the gear to 20 to get those first sets of bonuses. It's way cheaper in terms of upgrade ore than it is to try to send everything to 40. You'll see here I've got 40 on these, and I've got 20 on at least everything on my first squad is 20. And my gear is a little bit different from what I've advertised because I just wanted to do some experimenting, but I have concluded that what I'm saying versus what I'm actually practicing is better. It is better to have your defenders with their 40 shields and radars, and then 20 guns and data chips, and then same case in point. The only benefit to upgrading the defender's guns and data chips first is that you can switch that gear around to hit harder on the code bosses, which is what I was kind of experimenting with, but I do feel the not having stronger shields and radars on my damage classes actually does, hurt me on kill event days. So it kind of just depends on what you want to prioritize more. If you're not really big into player versus player or PvP, then I would stick with the strategy that I outlined of going back and forth. I think that will probably do more for you. And the last part of the gear to consider is what happens when you get to 40. So once you get a piece of gear to 40, it's going to look like this, and it's going to have 5 blank dots. And what this is when you go to upgrade your gear, you will be able to promote it 4 times, and then on the 5th time, it will require gear blueprints to give it a dot on the weapon. And gear blueprints are these items right here. And you get these that you can buy from the honor store. You can also get them from some hot deal events, like occasionally these events will give out gear blueprints. But for the time being, the primary way that you're going to get these is by doing like Desert Storm to get gear blueprints, and participating in the Capital War and opening all of your chests and getting honor points from that. But you never want to buy anything else out of the store besides the gear blueprints, because these will run you, I believe, about $6 per gear blueprint. If you bought them from the Glittering Market for $100, you can get, I think, about 16. So it's like $6.25 for one. So just to get 10 of these, that's going to be, about $60. And the way that you use the gear blueprints when you get to 40 is that it changes, it varies. So when you look at a piece of gear and it has no dots on it, when you go to promote it, you're going to first have to spend the dielectric ceramics, and you're going to have to spend ore, and you're going to have to spend coins. And it's going to cost this much for each upgrade, and you have to do this 4 times. So it's going to be 1, and then 2, 3, and then 4, and then after 4 times, the 5th time, it's going to not require, I'll go show you an example of that on a higher level gear. Once you get to the 5th one, it's going to take away the coin requirement, but it's still going to require the ore. It's going to still require dielectric ceramics, and this is where you're going to use the gear blueprints. And it's going to be an increasing amount of gear blueprints that you're going to need for each level. So the first level, when it's 40 and you get it promoted up 4 times, then on the 5th time, this one is going to take 5 gear blueprints. And then for gear that has a single dot on it, when you promote this one all the way up, the next dot is going to take 10 blueprints. And then after the second dot, the third dot takes 15 blueprints, the fourth dot takes 20 blueprints, and you can see that in my Reaper's gun. I'm about to get the 4th dot, but I don't have enough blueprints, so I have to wait till like Desert Storm and the Capital War, and then I should have enough, maybe, hopefully, to get the gear to 4 stars then. But it's going to cost this amount every upgrade for 5 total upgrades for the dielectric ceramics and the ore, which is why I haven't been crafting gear in my gear factory for my 3rd squad, because it looks like I have a lot of dielectric ceramics, but as you can see, the amount to promote gear beyond level 40 takes 285 each time, and that's times 5, so it's over 1,000 dielectric ceramics for me getting it from 3 dots to 4 dots, which is more than it costs to make one piece of whole gear. So, and these amounts increase. So the cost of ore to upgrade it from, 40 to 1 dot is cheaper coins, cheaper ore, and cheaper amount of ceramics. This one's only 150, 12.5k, and 23 million, versus the higher upgrades. These are like 23k ore, and I forgot the coins, I think it was over 30 million, but 285 ceramics for each upgrade, and then of course more blueprints. So in total for the gear blueprints, you need a total of 50 to get your gear to what is called pre-mythic, which is where this one is about to be. It takes 5 for the first dot, it takes 10 for the second, 15 for the third, and 20 for the 4th dot, for a total of 50. And those 50 gear blueprints will get you to 4 dots, and then you have to upgrade it 4 more times, which will cost, again, more ore, more coins, and more dielectric ceramics. And then when you get to the 5th dot, it'll look just like this, but instead of gear blueprints, it's going to require 10 mythic blueprints. And if you want an example of what the mythic blueprints are, right now we have in the hot deals ammo bonanza going on, there is the bullseye loot. And at the end of the bullseye loot right now, you can get mythic gear blueprints from this event, and it tells you get 10 once you get to the end, if you get to the end. And the other types of events you can get gear blueprints from are the code boss. I can't show it to you right now because they all have different rewards, but if you go to the goals for these, when you hit certain damage thresholds, you get big chunks of rewards. And for the tank boss, it's resources is his significant thing. But for the aircraft boss, you can get 10 mythic blueprints on 2 different occasions for 2 different damage thresholds. So those are some free mythic blueprints you are able to get in the game. I think those are the only ones that are free that you are able to get in the game. But the mythic blueprints out of the glittering market that just passed were about $300 US, and for the bullseye loot game, they end up being closer to $600 US if you get them here, but you do get other stuff along the way, depending on if you've like saved your ammo. There's a strategy for saving ammo for like 3 to 6 months to make it so you have at least 680 bullets for this game to make it all the way to the end and get the mythic blueprints. But keep in mind that this progress does reset every time you do this game, so you want to save up your bullets if you're doing free to play until you have at least 680. But if you're spending money, just keep in mind you're going to need about 680, and it's $100 for 120, so that's kind of a lot of money if you're wanting to just directly buy mythics from this event. That should run you somewhere between like about, I think, $560 if you just bought all of the packs that you needed. But if you space it out and you get the free ammo every day, you could also just technically get some bullets for free and make things a lot easier for you that way. But that generally is how you want to upgrade your gear. And as usual, if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to message me in game. Don't message me or comment on the videos. I don't check that. But the gear is a really important priority for your hero strength, and you definitely don't want to undermine it. And the last little pro tip I want to give to you is that if you have gear blueprints sitting in your inventory, stop leveling up all of your gear and just focus on putting it into either your gun that you're trying to level up or your radar that you're trying to level up, because if you have that gear blueprint sitting in your inventory, you're leaving a lot of defense or damage on the table. Because as you can see, in the next promotion for this one, I'm going to get over 600 hero attack. I'm getting huge stat increases from upgrading my gear because it's parabolic. So as your gear gets higher level, each increase gets higher level. So you want to push these as high as a level as you can, as early as you can, because this game favors the unbalanced. So if you've got, for example, a mythic gun pretty early game, you're just going to one-shot everybody because the amount of damage this does is just insane. And then of course it gives you a 10% damage bonus for counters. So when this is on aircraft, because of the combat triangle, aircraft does more damage against tanks, tanks do more damage against missiles, and missiles do more damage against aircraft. If I put this gun on them, they get a 10% bonus on top of the 20% bonus they get for being in a pure squad of all missiles, aircraft, or tanks. So you can really stack damage up with these higher level weapons. But even if they're not mythic, getting them to pre-mythic is almost as good as getting them to mythic. It is definitely not the same, but as you can see with my Reaper gun, and it's not quite there yet, I'm still almost at 8,600 hero attack. Like, it's still really far up there compared to my mythic gun, which is 10,749 hero attack. So you can get pretty close to feeling like you've got a mythic, even if you don't want to spend $300 on them. So that's pretty much all my tips on gear. Highest priority is just breaking everything down and making legendary gear. You can get a lot of power just by putting gear on your squads. My second squad with just unupgraded gear on it is almost 15 million versus my third squad, which doesn't have upgraded gear on it completely yet. It's only at 11 million. So you can get millions of power just from having gear on everything and it not even being upgraded. So keep that in mind. But also, once your first squad is fully geared, make sure the priority you're upgrading in is as I've outlined, because you don't want to just have levels all over the place. You don't want things being leveled up in anything less than 10 levels at a time. And again, just use your ore as you get it and keep pushing things up. It's better to have the ore invested in the gear than just be waiting to have enough to go up 10 levels. Just keep working on the same piece of gear until it is up the full 10 levels. And again, try to go up in increments of 20 levels. And that's pretty much all I have for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.